My grandson called at 3 a.m. Grandma, I beg you, don't say I called. I overheard their conversation. What he told me through tears about my son and his wife's plans made me turn pale. By 6 a.m., I was already sitting in the notary's office. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I had lived in my house on Maple Street for 42 years. My late husband, Thomas, and I raised our son Richard there, celebrated every holiday, every birthday. After Thomas passed 3 years ago, the house became even more precious to me. It held every memory of our life together. At 71, I was still independent, still sharp, still capable of managing my own affairs. Richard visited every Sunday with his wife Jennifer and their son, my beloved grandson Kyle, who was 16. Or at least that's what they used to do. Lately, things had changed. The first signs were subtle. Richard started asking about my finances. How much was the house worth? Did I have a will? Had I thought about simplifying my life? Jennifer would chime in with comments about how difficult it must be for me to maintain such a large property alone. They made it sound like concern, but something in their tone felt wrong. Their eyes would scan the rooms as if appraising everything. Then came the suggested improvements. Richard insisted on becoming a joint owner on my bank account. Just in case of emergency, Mom. Jennifer pushed for power of attorney to help you with medical decisions, when the time comes. When the time comes. I wasn't dying. I wasn't incapacitated. I was gardening. I was driving. I was living my life perfectly well. But the real change was in Kyle. My talkative, affectionate grandson had become quiet during visits. He wouldn't meet my eyes. When I asked him about school, about his friends, he gave short answers and excused himself quickly. What had happened to the boy who used to help me bake cookies and tell me everything? I felt it in my bones. Something was wrong. But I had no proof, just a grandmother's instinct and a growing pit of anxiety in my stomach. Then came that phone call. It was 3 a.m. on a Tuesday in October when my phone rang. The sound jolted me from sleep, my heart immediately racing. Nothing good happens at 3 a.m. I grabbed the phone and saw Kyle's name on the screen. Kyle, sweetheart, what's wrong? His voice was shaking, barely above a whisper. Grandma, please. Please don't tell them I called. I'm in my closet right now. They don't know I'm awake. My blood ran cold. Tell me what happened. Are you safe? I'm okay, but Grandma. He started crying. I heard them tonight. Mom and Dad were in the kitchen, and I came downstairs for water. They didn't hear me. I stayed in the hallway and listened. What did you hear? My hands were trembling as I gripped the phone. They're planning to put you in a nursing home, Grandma. Dad said they need to do it soon, before you realize what's happening. Mom said they already found a place, some cheap facility across town. They want to sell your house and keep the money. They said, his voice broke. They said you're too old to know what's good for you anymore, that you won't even remember your own name in a few years, so what does it matter? I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. My own son. The boy I raised, the man I supported through college, through his wedding, through everything. There's more, Grandma. Kyle's voice dropped even lower. Dad said something about papers he needs you to sign, some documents that would transfer the house to them. He told Mom they're going to bring them this Sunday and convince you it's just estate planning stuff. Mom laughed and said you'd sign anything if they acted worried enough about your health. Kyle, I'm so sorry, Grandma. I didn't know what to do. I felt sick about it for weeks. They've been talking about this for months, but tonight they were making final plans. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. But please, please, don't tell them I called. Dad will... I don't know what he'll do. I won't tell them, sweetheart. You did the right thing. You're brave and good, and I love you." My mind was already racing ahead. "Go back to bed now. Act normal." "Can you do that?" "Yes." "I'm scared, Grandma." "I know. But I'm going to handle this. Trust me." After he hung up, I sat in the darkness of my bedroom, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. My son wanted to rob me of my independence, my home, my dignity. How long had he been planning this betrayal? I didn't sleep the rest of that night. By 6 a.m., I was showered, dressed, and sitting in a lawyer's office. If Richard wanted to play games with my life, he was about to learn that his mother wasn't the helpless old woman he thought I was. The lawyer's name was Patricia Chen, and I'd chosen her because she was the toughest attorney in town, a woman who'd made her reputation defending elderly clients from financial abuse. Her office smelled like coffee and leather, and her sharp eyes assessed me the moment I walked in. "Mrs. Morrison, you said on the phone this was urgent." I told her everything: Kyle's call, Richard and Jennifer's plan, the documents they intended to deceive me into signing. My voice stayed steady, but inside, I was crumbling. How do you explain to a stranger that your own child, the baby you held, the boy you protected from every scraped knee and broken heart, is plotting to destroy you? Patricia didn't flinch. She'd heard it all before. "Financial elder abuse is more common than people think," she said. "Adult children convincing themselves they're entitled to their parents' assets before those parents are even gone. Sometimes they convince themselves they're doing it for the parents' own good." "He's not doing this for my good," I said bitterly. "He's doing it for his bank account." She pulled out a legal pad. "Let's talk about what you own." The list was substantial. The house, paid off, worth about $680,000 in the current market. My savings account, $180,000, money Thomas and I had accumulated through careful living and good investments. My late husband's pension and my Social Security, a few valuable pieces of jewelry. Altogether, I was worth over $900,000. No wonder Richard was circling like a vulture. "What can they actually do?" I asked. "Can they really put me in a nursing home against my will?" "Not easily," Patricia said. "You'd need to be declared mentally incompetent, and from talking to you for 10 minutes, I can see you're perfectly sharp. But there are sneaky ways. If you signed documents giving them power of attorney, they could make decisions on your behalf. If they got joint ownership of your accounts, they could drain them. If you signed a deed transfer, even under false pretenses, that house could be theirs before you realized what happened." My stomach turned. "The documents they're bringing Sunday. Most likely a financial power of attorney, possibly a quitclaim deed disguised as estate planning paperwork. They'd present it casually, pressure you to sign quickly, maybe have a fake notary there to make it look official. What do I do?" Patricia leaned forward. "First, we protect your assets immediately. Today, we set up a revocable living trust with you as the sole trustee. The house goes into the trust, your accounts go into the trust. That way, even if they somehow got you to sign something, the assets aren't in your name anymore. They're in the trust's name. You still control everything, but they can't touch it. Second," she continued, "we draft a very clear power of attorney document naming someone you trust, not Richard. Do you have anyone? Another relative? A friend?" I thought immediately of my sister Dorothy, who lived in Vermont. We'd always been close. "My sister." "Yes." "Good. We make her your power of attorney for both healthcare and finances. We get it notarized today, make it official. That blocks any documents Richard tries to get you to sign. They'll be invalid because you already have a valid POA in place. Third, we document everything. I want you to write down every conversation where they pressured you, every suspicious comment. Dates, times, exact words if you remember them. If this goes to court, we'll need evidence of their intent." Court. The word made me feel sick. my son, in court. But what choice did I have? How much will this cost? I asked. For the trust, the POA, and initial consultation? About $3,500. If they fight back and we need to take further legal action, more. But Mrs. Morrison, if you do nothing, you'll lose everything. I wrote the check right there. We spent the next 3 hours going through paperwork. Patricia was efficient, explaining each document in plain English. The trust was funded. My house, my accounts, everything now protected. Dorothy was named as my attorney, in fact. We signed, we notarized, we filed. When I left Patricia's office at 11 a.m., I felt different. The fear was still there, writhing in my chest like something alive. But underneath it was something harder, colder. Determination. How dare they? How dare my son look at me and see not his mother, but a paycheck? How dare Jennifer, who'd never worked a day in her life, who'd spent years spending Richard's money on designer handbags and spa weekends, decide that my hard-earned assets should be hers? I thought about Kyle, whispering from his closet in the dark, terrified of his own parents. That brave boy deserved better than growing up watching his parents become thieves. I drove home slowly, gripping the steering wheel. Sunday was 5 days away. 5 days to prepare. Richard and Jennifer thought they were playing me, but they'd underestimated their opponent. I'd spent 42 years as a mother, a wife, a homemaker. They thought that made me weak. They were about to learn that mothers, especially cornered mothers protecting what's theirs, could be absolutely ruthless. The next morning, I called my bank. I'd been with First National for 30 years, and my account manager, Susan, knew me well. Mrs. Morrison, how can I help you today? Susan, I need to know something. Has anyone tried to access my accounts recently? Anyone asking questions about me? There was a pause. Actually, yes. Your son Richard called last week. He said he was concerned about your memory and wanted to know if we'd noticed any unusual activity on your account. He asked if we could send him copies of your statements. My jaw tightened. What did you tell him? I told him we can't release that information without your written authorization. He seemed frustrated. Susan, I need you to flag my account. No information goes to anyone but me. If Richard calls again, don't tell him anything. And if anyone tries to add their name to my account, I want to be notified immediately. Of course. Mrs. Morrison, is everything all right? It will be, I said. I made similar calls to my credit card companies, my investment broker, even the county property records office. I requested fraud alerts. I locked everything down. If Richard and Jennifer were planning to steal from me, they'd find every door closed and bolted. Wednesday afternoon, Richard called. Hi, Mom. Just checking in. How are you feeling? His voice was so cheerful, so normal. How long had he been acting this way while plotting behind my back? I'm fine, Richard. Perfectly fine. That's great. Listen, Jennifer and I were thinking we'd come by Sunday for dinner. Maybe we could bring some papers for you to look at. Just some estate planning stuff. Nothing urgent, but you know, it's good to have things in order. There it was. The trap. Baited. And ready. Estate planning? I kept my voice neutral, curious, but not alarmed. Yeah, just simple stuff. Power of attorney documents, some trust information. We thought it would give you peace of mind, knowing everything's organized. We could bring them around 3? That sounds fine, Richard. I let a slight tremor enter my voice. You know, I have been feeling a bit overwhelmed lately with all the paperwork and bills. It would be nice to have some help. I could practically hear him smile through the phone. That's exactly why we want to help, Mom. Don't worry about anything. We'll take care of everything. After he hung up, I sat staring at my phone. He'd lied so smoothly with such practiced ease. My own son. Thursday morning, Kyle sent me a text. Grandma, they're meeting with someone today. Don't know who. Mom said to Dad, Make sure he brings the right documents. I'm scared, I texted back. Don't be scared. I know what I'm doing. Stay strong, sweetheart. Friday afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. The doorbell rang at 2 p.m. I opened it to find a short, balding man in an ill-fitting suit holding a briefcase. Mrs. Morrison? I'm Gary Feldman. I'm a notary public. Your son Richard hired me to come by Sunday to notarize some documents for you. My heart began to race, but I kept my face pleasant and confused. Oh? Richard didn't mention you'd be coming by early. I'm not here for the signing, Gary said quickly. I just wanted to introduce myself beforehand, make sure you were comfortable with everything. Richard said you've been having some memory issues, and he wanted to make sure the process would go smoothly. Memory issues? I blinked at him innocently. I don't have memory issues. Gary shifted uncomfortably. Well, that's what your son said. He mentioned you'd been forgetting things, getting confused. He said these documents were to protect you and make sure your assets were properly managed. What kind of documents? A financial power of attorney and a quitclaim deed for your house, standard estate planning documents. There it was. Confirmation from their own hired notary. They were planning to make Richard power of attorney and transfer my house to him, all in one sitting. Mr. Feldman, I said carefully, did my son explain what these documents actually do? Sure. They allow him to manage your finances and handle the house sale when you eventually need to move to assisted living. He said you'd agreed to all this, that you knew it was for the best. I see. I smiled at him. Well, thank you for stopping by. I'll see you Sunday. After he left, I immediately called Patricia Chen. They've got a notary coming Sunday, I told her. He just showed up at my door. They're planning to have me sign over financial power of attorney and a quitclaim deed. Did you record the conversation? No, I stopped. Why hadn't I thought of that? Mrs. Morrison, from now until Sunday, I want you to record everything. Your phone has a voice recorder app. Use it. If they say anything incriminating, we'll have proof. And I'm going to prepare something special for Sunday's meeting. How do you feel about having an audience? What do you mean? Patricia's voice was cold and satisfied. I mean, your son is about to find out that trying to defraud his elderly mother isn't as easy as he thought. Do exactly as I tell you, and by Sunday evening, this will be over. I hung up and stood in my living room, looking at the photos on the mantel. Richard as a baby. Richard's high school graduation. Richard's wedding. Had he been planning this even then? Looking at me and thinking, someday, all of this will be mine. Sunday was 2 days away. 2 days until my son walked into my house expecting a helpless victim and found something else entirely. Sunday arrived with clear blue skies that felt like mockery. How could the weather be so beautiful when my world was falling apart? Patricia had given me specific instructions. I'd hidden a small recording device in the flower arrangement on my dining room table. Perfectly legal in our state to record conversations in your own home. Patricia herself would be waiting in my den with the door cracked open, listening to everything. And I'd called Dorothy in Vermont, who'd confirmed by email that she was now my official power of attorney, with copies filed at the county clerk's office. Richard, Jennifer, and Kyle arrived at exactly 3 p.m. Jennifer was wearing expensive sunglasses and carrying a designer purse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Richard had a folder tucked under his arm. The poisoned documents, no doubt. Kyle looked pale and miserable, his eyes darting to mine with an expression of desperate apology. Mom? Richard kissed my cheek, and it took everything in me not to recoil. You look great. How are you feeling? Wonderful, I said, smiling. Please, come sit in the dining room. I made coffee. We settled around the table. Gary Feldman arrived 10 minutes later, nervously clutching his notary stamp. Jennifer immediately took control, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Mom, we're so glad we're doing this. Richard and I have been so worried about you rattling around in this big house alone. These documents will make everything so much easier for everyone." Richard pulled papers from the folder. "This first one is a financial power of attorney. It just means I can help you pay bills and manage your accounts. Nothing changes for you. You still have complete access to everything." I pretended to read it, letting confusion cross my face. "It says here that you would have full authority to make financial decisions on my behalf. Only if you're unable to make them yourself," Richard said smoothly. "It's just a precaution, Mom. For your protection. And this one?" I pointed to the second document. "That's a quitclaim deed. It transfers the house into my name. Well, into my and Jennifer's names. But again, nothing changes for you. You keep living here as long as you want. We're just streamlining things for when the time comes to sell." "When the time comes to sell?" I repeated slowly. "You mean after I'm dead?" Jennifer laughed, a brittle sound. "Or when you decide to move to a nice facility where you'd have more support. You know, somewhere with medical staff and activities. You'd make so many friends." I set the papers down and looked at my son directly. "Richard, when exactly did I agree to any of this?" He blinked. "We've discussed it, Mom. Several times. You said you wanted help managing things." "No," I said quietly. "I never said that." The atmosphere in the room shifted. Jennifer's smile faded. Richard's expression tightened. "Mom, you're confused." "I'm not confused." I stood up. "What I am is disappointed. Devastated, actually. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" Richard's face went white, then red. "Find out what?" "That you're planning to steal my house and put me in a cheap nursing home so you can take my money." Jennifer stood up sharply. "That's ridiculous. We're trying to help you. And this is the thanks we get?" "Help me?" My voice rose. "You told Gary here that I have memory issues. You've been calling my bank trying to access my accounts. You've been planning this for months." Richard's jaw clenched. "Who told you that?" "Does it matter?" His eyes darted to Kyle, who was staring at his hands. "Kyle, did you—" Richard's voice turned dangerous. "Did you spy on us?" "Leave him alone," I snapped. "He did what was right." "He betrayed us," Jennifer shrieked. "After everything we've given him, he goes crying to you with lies." "They're not lies," I said coldly. "And you're not taking anything from me. Not my house, not my money, not my independence." Richard stood up, looming over me. "You're making a huge mistake, Mom. You're old. You're going to need care. What happens when you fall and break a hip? When you get dementia? Who's going to take care of you then?" "Not you," I said. "That's now very clear." "You ungrateful," Jennifer started, but Richard grabbed her arm. "Mom," Richard said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "Sign the papers. Stop being difficult." "I have a better idea. Get out of my house." "You don't mean that." "Get out." At that moment, Patricia emerged from the den. "I believe Mrs. Morrison asked you to leave." Richard's eyes widened. "Who the hell are you?" "Patricia Chen, Mrs. Morrison's attorney, and everything you've said in the last 20 minutes has been recorded." She held up her phone, which had also been recording. "Attempted financial fraud of an elderly person is a serious crime in this state." Jennifer went pale. "You can't." "I can, and I have. Mrs. Morrison's assets are now in an irrevocable trust that you cannot touch. Her power of attorney is held by her sister Dorothy, not you. And if you continue to harass her, I will pursue criminal charges." Richard's face was purple with fury. "You have no idea what you've done, Mom. You'll regret this. When you're lying alone in some state-run facility because you can't take care of yourself anymore, Remember that you chose this. I'm choosing dignity, I said. Something you clearly know nothing about. He grabbed Jennifer's arm. Come on, we're leaving. He looked at Kyle. You too. Kyle stood slowly. As he passed me, I caught his hand and squeezed it. I love you, I whispered. Tears streamed down his face. I love you too, Grandma. Richard yanked Kyle toward the door. You're grounded, indefinitely. No phone, no computer, no nothing. Richard, I started. Stay away from my family, he roared. You want to be alone? Fine, be alone. But don't come crawling back to us when you need help. They slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Gary Feldman had already slunk out during the confrontation. Patricia and I stood in the sudden silence. My legs gave out. I sat down hard, shaking uncontrollably. You did beautifully, Patricia said gently. But I didn't feel beautiful. I felt destroyed. My son hated me. My grandson was being punished for telling the truth. I'd won the battle, but at what cost? Take a few days to rest, Patricia advised. This is traumatic. Don't make any decisions right now, just breathe. For the next 3 days, I barely got out of bed. I spent Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in a haze of grief. I couldn't eat. Sleep came in fits and starts, filled with nightmares. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Richard's furious face, heard Jennifer's venomous voice, saw Kyle's tears. Patricia called twice to check on me. Dorothy called from Vermont, offering to fly down. I'm coming, she insisted. You shouldn't be alone right now. I'm fine, I lied. But I wasn't fine. I was shattered. Yes, I'd protected my assets. Yes, I'd stood up for myself. But the price was my family. The price was my son. Wednesday evening, my doorbell rang. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me check the peephole. It was Jennifer. Alone. My first instinct was to deadbolt the door and walk away. But curiosity won. I opened it, but kept the chain lock engaged. Margaret, she said, using my first name in a way she rarely did. Her voice was soft, conciliatory. Please, can we talk? Just for a few minutes. Talk about what? About fixing this. About family. She looked tired, her makeup less perfect than usual. I know things got heated on Sunday. Richard said some things he didn't mean. We all did. But we're family, Margaret. We shouldn't let money tear us apart. You're the ones who made this about money, I said. We were trying to help. She sighed, a calculated sound of weary patience. Look, I'll be honest with you. Richard is under a lot of stress at work. His company is downsizing, and he's worried about being laid off. We have Kyle's college tuition coming up. Our mortgage payment just increased. I know we handled this badly, but we're not villains. We're just scared. Despite myself, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Then I remembered Kyle whispering in terror from his closet, and the sympathy evaporated. If you're struggling financially, that's unfortunate. But stealing from me isn't the solution. We weren't stealing, Jennifer said, but her voice had an edge now. Richard is your only child. Eventually, everything you have will go to him anyway. We were just trying to expedite things. Make sure the assets were protected. Protected from whom? Me? Margaret, you're 71 years old. You live alone in a big house. What happens if you fall? What happens when you can't drive anymore? When you can't remember to take your medications? We're trying to plan ahead. By lying to me? By forging documents? We didn't forge anything. She was getting agitated now, her mask slipping. Those were legal documents prepared by a lawyer. You're being paranoid and stubborn, and you're hurting your own son because of it. Jennifer, I said quietly, I know what you and Richard said to each other. I know you called me a burden. I know you laughed about getting me to sign away my house. I know you've already picked out a cheap nursing home for me. So please don't insult my intelligence by pretending this was about my welfare." Her face hardened. "Fine. You want the truth? Yes. We need money. Yes, we think you're sitting on a fortune while Richard struggles. Yes, we think you're being selfish, keeping everything to yourself when you could help your own son. You raised him. You owe him something." "I owe him something?" My voice was ice. "I raised him. I fed him, clothed him, put him through college. I loved him unconditionally for 45 years. What I don't owe him is my entire life savings as a reward for his entitlement." "You'll die alone," Jennifer hissed. "Miserable and alone. And when you do, Richard won't even come to your funeral. Then I guess I'll have to live with that." I closed the door in her face and locked it. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from cold, clarifying anger. I called Dorothy. "I need you," I said. "Please come." She arrived Friday morning, flying in from Burlington to Newark and driving straight to my house. The moment I opened the door and saw her face, my sister, my ally, my childhood friend, I broke down crying. "Oh, Maggie," she said, pulling me into her arms. She was the only person who still called me Maggie. I'm here. She stayed with me for a week, and her presence was medicine. We talked for hours about Richard, about Thomas, about life and betrayal and resilience. She made me eat. She made me laugh. She reminded me who I was beyond being a mother, beyond being a victim. "You did the right thing," Dorothy said firmly. "Richard made his choices. You don't sacrifice yourself on the altar of his greed. But Kyle is 16, not 6. He knows right from wrong, and he'll find his way back to you. Give him time." She also brought practical help. We installed a security system in my house. Cameras, motion sensors, everything. We updated my will to make everything crystal clear. We organized my financial documents. We prepared for any future attacks. By the time Dorothy left, I felt stronger. Not healed, but fortified. Ready, because I knew this wasn't over. 2 weeks after Dorothy returned to Vermont, Richard and Jennifer appeared at my door again. It was a Saturday morning, and I was in my garden when I heard their car pull into the driveway. My heart sank. I'd hoped for more time, more peace. But here they were. Richard got out first, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Mom, please. Just give us 5 minutes. We come in peace." Jennifer stood beside him, wearing an expression of practiced remorse. No designer sunglasses today. She'd dressed down, jeans and a simple sweater. They were presenting themselves as humble, defeated, ready to make amends. I didn't believe it for a second, but I was curious what game they were playing now. I took off my gardening gloves and met them at the front door. 5 minutes, I said. We sat in the living room. Richard looked at the new security cameras and his jaw tightened, but he said nothing about them. "Mom," he began, his voice carefully modulated, "I owe you an apology, a big one. I handled everything completely wrong. I let stress and financial pressure turn me into someone I'm not, someone I'm ashamed of." "We both are," Jennifer added. "Margaret, we never wanted to hurt you. We panicked. And we made terrible decisions because of it." I said nothing, just watched them, waiting. "The thing is," Richard continued, "I've been thinking a lot these past couple weeks. About family, about what matters. And I realize that no amount of money is worth losing you." His eyes were moist. "You're my mom. You're the only mother I'll ever have. I was an idiot to jeopardize that. We want to start over," Jennifer said. "Clean slate. No talk about money or houses or any of that. Just family. Just being there for each other." It was a beautiful performance, really, quite impressive. If I hadn't heard their actual words, their actual plans, I might have believed them. "What about Kyle?" I asked. "You grounded him, took away his phone, punished him for telling me the truth." Richard shifted uncomfortably. "I overreacted. I was angry and hurt, and I took it out on him. That wasn't fair. We've talked to him, and we understand now that he was trying to protect you. He thought you were in danger. I was in danger from you. Mom, let me finish." My voice was calm, but firm. "You came here today with apologies and tears, and maybe some part of you even means it. But I don't trust you, Richard. You looked me in the eye and lied to me. You called me senile to my bank. You hired a notary to witness fraud. You planned to steal my house and warehouse me in a cheap facility. Those aren't the actions of someone who loves me. Those are the actions of someone who sees me as an obstacle to money." "People make mistakes," Jennifer burst out. "You're going to hold this over us forever? Never forgive us?" "Forgiveness and trust are different things," I said. "Maybe someday I'll forgive you. But I will never trust you again. I will never sign anything you give me. I will never take legal or financial advice from you. I will never let you back into my business or my life in that way." Richard's expression began to shift. The mask of contrition was cracking, showing the anger beneath. "So that's it?" he said. "We apologize. We try to make things right. And you just reject us? You didn't try to make things right. You tried to manipulate me again. There's a difference." "We came here in good faith." Jennifer stood up, her voice rising. "We humbled ourselves, and you're throwing it back in our faces." "Good faith?" I stood too. "You want good faith? Tell me the truth. Why are you really here?" Richard's face flushed dark red. "Because Kyle won't stop crying. Because he keeps asking to see you, and we can't control him anymore. Because having you as an enemy makes our lives difficult. Is that what you want to hear?" "There it is," I said softly. "The truth." "You're a vindictive, selfish old woman," Jennifer spat. "You're punishing your own son because we had the audacity to think about our financial future. Do you know what your house is worth? Almost $700,000. You're sitting on a gold mine while we struggle with bills and you don't care. Your financial problems are not my responsibility to solve by giving you my home." "We're your family," Richard roared. "Family helps each other. Or does that only work one direction? You needed help raising me, and my whole childhood I heard about sacrifice. But now when I need help, you shut the door in my face?" "I helped raise you by working 2 jobs when your father was sick, by cutting coupons and shopping at thrift stores so you could have new school clothes, by putting you through college using money we'd saved for our retirement." "Don't talk to me about sacrifice, Richard. I sacrificed plenty. What I won't sacrifice is my dignity and independence so you can have an early inheritance." "This isn't over," Richard said, his voice low and menacing. "You think you've won, but you haven't. You're still old. You're still alone. And eventually, you will need help. And when that day comes, who do you think will be there? Not me. Then I guess I'll hire someone who doesn't want to rob me blind." Jennifer grabbed her purse. "You'll regret this. You're burning bridges you can't rebuild. The bridges were burned when you tried to steal my house. I'm just acknowledging the ashes." They stormed out, slamming the door again. Richard's car screeched out of my driveway, leaving rubber marks on the concrete. I stood in my living room, my heart hammering. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't just anger. It was fear. Real, primal fear. Richard's threat echoed in my mind. This isn't over. What would they try next? What could they do? Would they try to have me declared incompetent? Would they contest the trust? Would they harass me until I broke? I sat down heavily on the couch, fighting panic. Then I remembered Dorothy's words. You did the right thing. The fear was there, yes, But underneath it was something harder, something unbreakable. They'd tried manipulation. They'd tried intimidation. They'd tried everything they could think of. And I was still standing. I called Patricia. I need to know my legal options if they keep harassing me. I can file for a restraining order if needed, she said. Do you feel unsafe? Not physically, but emotionally. Yes. Document everything. Record every interaction. If they escalate, we'll get a court order. They can't force you to do anything, Margaret. Remember that. I hung up and looked around my house. My beautiful house filled with memories, with love, with the life Thomas and I had built. No one was taking this from me. Not Richard, not Jennifer, not anyone. Let them come, I'd be ready. The final confrontation came 3 weeks later, in the most unexpected venue, a courtroom. Richard and Jennifer had filed for emergency guardianship over me, claiming I was mentally incompetent and a danger to myself. They'd gotten a lawyer, some sleazy ambulance chaser named Martin Gould, and petitioned the court for an immediate hearing. Patricia called me the moment she received the notice. They're trying an end run around your trust. If they can get you declared incompetent, they can challenge everything. We have a hearing in 5 days. Can they win? Not if I have anything to say about it. But Margaret, this is going to get ugly. They're going to attack your mental capacity, your decision-making, your memory. They're going to paint you as a confused old woman who needs to be saved from herself. Let them try. Those 5 days felt like an eternity. Patricia prepared me extensively. We gathered documentation, my recent medical records showing perfect cognitive function, statements from my doctor, financial records showing I'd been managing my accounts perfectly, even character witnesses who could testify to my mental sharpness. The hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Thursday. I dressed carefully that morning, a navy blue suit, pearl earrings Thomas had given me for our 30th anniversary, sensible heels. I wanted to look competent, capable, unquestionably in control of my faculties. Dorothy had flown back down to be with me. "You've got this," she said as we walked into the courthouse. "Just tell the truth." The courtroom was small, used for family matters and probate cases. Judge Sandra Williams presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Richard and Jennifer sat on one side with Martin Gould. Patricia and I sat on the other. Kyle wasn't there. Richard had made sure of that. Judge Williams reviewed the petition. "Mr. Gould, you're asking this court to declare Margaret Morrison incompetent and appoint your clients as her legal guardians. That's a serious request. What's your evidence?" Gould stood, all practiced sympathy and concern. "Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison is 71 years old and living alone in a large house. In recent months, she's displayed several alarming behaviors. She's become paranoid, accusing her loving son of trying to steal from her. She's made erratic financial decisions, including transferring all her assets into a trust without consulting family. She's isolated herself from her support system. These are classic signs of cognitive decline. Mrs. Morrison," Judge Williams said, turning to me, "how do you respond?" I stood, my voice clear and steady. "Your Honor, I'm not paranoid. My son and daughter-in-law did try to defraud me. I have recordings of them admitting as much. I didn't make erratic financial decisions. I protected myself with the help of an attorney after discovering their plan. And I didn't isolate myself. They isolated themselves from me when I refused to let them steal my life savings." Judge Williams raised her eyebrows. "Recordings?" Patricia stood. "Your Honor, we have extensive evidence that Mr. Morrison and his wife attempted to coerce Mrs. Morrison into signing over power of attorney and her house deed under false pretenses. We have recordings of their conversations, testimony from the notary they hired, and documentation of their harassment." "I'd like to hear these recordings," the judge said. Patricia played them, Richard's voice cold and calculating. "We need to do it before she realizes what's happening." Jennifer laughing. "She'll sign anything if we act worried enough." Gary Feldman, confirming they'd told him I had memory issues. Richard's face went ashen. Jennifer stared at her hands. "Your Honor," Gould sputtered, "even if there was some miscommunication about Mrs. Morrison's intentions, that doesn't negate the fact that she's elderly and vulnerable." "She seems pretty sharp to me," Judge Williams said dryly. "Mrs. Morrison, I'd like to ask you some questions directly." For the next 20 minutes, the judge questioned me. Current events, basic math, memory tests, logical reasoning. I answered everything calmly and correctly. Then she asked the most important question. "Mrs. Morrison, why do you think your son filed for guardianship?" I looked directly at Richard. "Because I wouldn't give him my house. Because I protected my assets legally, and this is his attempt to circumvent those protections. Because he sees me not as his mother, but as a bank account he's entitled to." "That's not true," Richard burst out. "I'm trying to protect her from herself. She's being manipulated by that lawyer." "Mr. Morrison," Judge Williams said sharply, "you'll speak when spoken to." "Your Honor, my client is understandably emotional," Gould said. "His mother has been turned against him." "By evidence of his own words?" The judge's voice was ice. "Mr. Gould, I've presided over many guardianship cases. I know what genuine concern for an elderly parent looks like, and I know what financial exploitation looks like. This," she gestured at the petition, "looks like the latter disguised as the former." "Your Honor, I'm not finished. Mrs. Morrison is clearly competent. She's managing her affairs responsibly. She's made informed decisions with legal counsel. The only thing she's guilty of is refusing to be victimized by her own son." Judge Williams looked at Richard with undisguised disgust. "Petition denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering you, Mr. Morrison, and you, Mrs. Morrison, Jennifer, to cease all contact with Margaret Morrison unless she initiates it. No calls, no visits, no communication of any kind. If you violate this order, I'll hold you in contempt. Do you understand?" "Your Honor, that's—" Richard started. "Do you understand?" "Yes," he whispered. Jennifer was crying. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of fury and humiliation. "This court is adjourned." As we left the courtroom, Richard and Jennifer rushed past us. Jennifer hissed at me, "I hope you die alone." Richard said nothing, but his eyes burned with hatred. I watched them go and felt nothing. Not victory, not sadness, just relief. It was over. The judge's order was absolute. Richard and Jennifer were legally barred from contacting me unless I reached out first. Patricia had the court order officially served to them, making it crystal clear that any violation would result in jail time. For the first 2 weeks after the hearing, I waited for them to break the order. I waited for the angry phone call, the hostile email, the car in my driveway. But there was nothing. Silence. It was Patricia who brought me the news of what was happening to them. "You might want to hear this," she said during one of our follow-up meetings. The court hearing became a matter of public record. Someone, not me, I should clarify, anonymously sent the recordings and court transcripts to several people in Richard and Jennifer's social circle. "What?" I was genuinely shocked. "Who would do that?" Patricia shrugged, but I caught a slight smile. "The universe works in mysterious ways. Either way, it's having consequences. Richard's company found out that he tried to defraud his elderly mother. They're a family-owned business with strong values. He was fired 3 days ago." I felt a complex mix of emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also a pang of sadness. That was still my son, still suffering consequences. "There's more," Patricia continued. "Jennifer's been ostracized by her country club friends. Apparently, trying to steal your mother-in-law's house doesn't play well with the upper-middle-class set. She's been asked to resign from 2 charity boards. And Kyle?" I asked immediately. "How is Kyle?" Patricia's expression softened. "That's actually good news. Kyle turned 18 2 weeks ago. The day he turned 18, he left Richard and Jennifer's house. He's been staying with friends." My heart leaped. "He's okay?" "More than okay. He's been trying to reach you, actually. He didn't know if you'd want to hear from him. Of course I want to hear from him. How do I contact him? She handed me a piece of paper with a phone number. He gave me this to give to you. He said to call any time. I called immediately, right there in Patricia's office. Kyle answered on the first ring. Grandma? His voice cracked. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so glad you're okay. I'm so sorry, Grandma. I should have done more. Should have stopped them sooner. You did everything right. You were so brave. You saved me, Kyle. We talked for an hour. He told me about the aftermath, the arguments with Richard and Jennifer, their blame and anger, his growing realization that his parents were genuinely terrible people. He told me about leaving on his 18th birthday with nothing but a backpack. Where are you staying? I asked. With my friend Marcus's family. They're letting me sleep on their couch until I figure things out. Absolutely not, I said firmly. You're coming to stay with me. Grandma, I don't want to be a burden. You are not a burden. You are my grandson, and I love you, and you're coming home. I'll come pick you up right now. He started crying. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kyle moved in that evening. Having him in the house was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He helped with chores. We cooked together. We talked for hours every evening. He got a part-time job at a local bookstore. We looked at colleges together, and I told him I'd pay for his education, something I'd always planned to do before Richard tried to steal that money away. You don't have to do that, Grandma, Kyle said. I want to. This is what the money is for, helping the people I love who deserve help. As summer turned to fall, I heard through the grapevine, Dorothy had friends who had friends, that Richard and Jennifer's marriage was fracturing. Jennifer blamed Richard for the court disaster. Richard blamed Jennifer for pushing too hard. They'd had to sell their house and move into a small apartment. Richard was working at a hardware store, a massive step down from his corporate position. Jennifer had no income and no prospects, having spent years as a socialite rather than developing actual skills. Kyle's relationship with them was severed completely. They'd tried to contact him once, demanding he talk sense into me. He'd told them he never wanted to speak to them again. Do you feel guilty? Kyle asked me one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sunset. About what happened to them? I thought about it carefully. I feel sad that it came to this. I feel sad that my son became someone I don't recognize. But guilty? No. They made their choices. They tried to harm me and they're facing consequences. That's not my fault. They keep telling people you ruined their lives. I didn't ruin their lives. I protected mine. They ruined their own. Kyle nodded, satisfied with that answer. As autumn deepened, I found myself genuinely happy for the first time in years. My house was protected. My assets were secure. Kyle was thriving, already accepted to 3 good colleges. Dorothy visited monthly. I'd made new friends at a local book club. I'd won, not just legally, but completely. I had my independence, my dignity, my home, and the grandson who deserved my love. Richard and Jennifer had lost everything they'd fought for and more. And while I took no pleasure in their suffering, I felt no obligation to rescue them from the consequences of their own greed. Justice, it turned out, was exactly as sweet as everyone said. By winter, my life had transformed into something I'd never expected at 71. A fresh start. Kyle was enrolled at the state university, studying computer science. We'd decided he'd live with me and commute. Every morning, we had breakfast together. Every evening, we laughed at sitcoms and simply enjoyed being together. He'd started calling me his best friend, which made my heart swell every time. I'd also rediscovered myself. I joined a senior fitness class. I volunteered at the public library twice a week. I took an online course in art history. I traveled. A weekend trip to Boston to see Dorothy. A week in Charleston just because I'd always wanted to see it. I was thriving. Kyle thrived, too. His grades were excellent. He'd made friends and started dating a sweet girl named Emma, who called me Mrs. M. He was healing from the trauma of his parents' betrayal. "I'm happier now than I ever was living with them," he said one evening. "I'd rather have this honesty and love than their house and their lies." Meanwhile, I heard about Richard and Jennifer's continued downfall. Their marriage had ended. Jennifer filed for divorce, claiming Richard had destroyed her reputation and financial security. The divorce was bitter and expensive. Richard had moved to a studio apartment across town, still working at the hardware store, barely making ends meet. His drinking had increased. He'd tried to contact Kyle multiple times through mutual acquaintances, begging for forgiveness. Kyle ignored all of them. "He hasn't changed," Kyle said. "He's just desperate." Jennifer had moved back in with her elderly parents in another state, a humiliating retreat. Her parents made her work at their small dry cleaning operation. The woman who'd once worn designer labels was now pressing other people's clothes. I felt no satisfaction, no glee, just a cool acknowledgement that actions have consequences. What I did feel was profound gratitude. Gratitude that Kyle had warned me. Gratitude that I'd been strong enough to act. Gratitude that I'd survived and could now actually live. One spring afternoon, Kyle showed me his acceptance to a prestigious summer internship. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Grandma. You saved my life as much as I saved yours." I hugged him tightly. We saved each other. That night I looked at Thomas's photo. "I did it," I whispered. "I protected everything we built, and I'm actually happy." My life, which Richard and Jennifer had tried to end prematurely, was actually just beginning again. At 71, I was more alive than I'd been in years. Meanwhile, they were exactly where they'd tried to put me, trapped, struggling, with nothing but regrets. The universe had a sense of justice after all. So here's what I learned. Protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Family doesn't mean blind trust. Love should never cost you your dignity or independence. And sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. My son chose greed over love. I chose myself. I don't regret it. If someone you love starts treating you like an obstacle instead of a person, pay attention. Trust your instincts. Protect what's yours. Don't let guilt or obligation make you a victim. I'm 72 now, living happily with my grandson, secure in my home, thriving in my life. Richard and Jennifer are living with their choices. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to choose between family and self-preservation? Share your story in the comments below. I read everyone. Thank you for listening to my story. Subscribe for more real-life lessons about family, resilience, and finding strength when you need it most. Remember, you're never too old to stand up for yourself.